Tuesday morning, usual routine. Grab a blueberry muffin, stand in line at Joe's Java. Eyes glued to my phone, catching up on emails, when a deep voice cuts through the morning chatter. Large black coffee, double shot. Look up, and bam. There he is. Tall, broad shoulders straining against a crisp blue uniform. Police badge gleaming on his chest. My stomach flips. He catches my eye, a slow smile spreads across his face. Rough morning? He asks, his voice warm and friendly. Heat rises to my cheeks. Just emails, I mumble, feeling caught staring. Tell you what, he leans closer, conspiratorially, cops get free coffee sometimes. Maybe you could be my lucky charm today? My heart hammers against my ribs. A cop flirting? Totally unexpected. Sure. I stammer, a nervous laugh escaping my lips. He winks. David, he extends a hand. Sarah, I shake it, surprised by the spark that shoots up my arm. He pays for both our coffees, holding the door open with a flourish. We chat outside, him about the crazy night shift he just pulled, me pretending to be interested in police work, which, let's be honest, I wasn't. But there was something about him, that easy smile, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners. Totally disarming. By the time we finished our coffees, the sun was high in the sky. We said our goodbyes, a lingering touch on my hand sending shivers down my spine. He mentioned stopping by the coffee shop again, sometime. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey, it's David, the cop from this morning. Hope you're having a good night. My pulse quickened. A cop flirting through text messages? This was definitely outside my comfort zone. But there was something about the thrill of the unexpected, the secrecy of it all, that made me reply. And that, my friends, is how it started. Late-night texts became a nightly ritual. David spun tales of long hours, bad guys, and the stress of the job. I, the damsel in distress, offering virtual support and, admit it, Sarah, a healthy dose of flirtation. It was exciting, dangerous even, and frankly, a welcome distraction from my boring routine. Little did I know, the man behind the texts harbored a secret far bigger than a double shot of espresso. Friday night rolled around, a text from David buzzing in my pocket. Any chance you're free tonight? Need a break from the city lights. Intrigued, I texted back, intriguing. What do you have in mind? His reply was quick. Meet me at the park entrance by the old oak tree, 8 p.m. Dress warm. Bring a sense of adventure. My heart thumped a little faster. This was definitely not how my usual Friday nights went. But the thrill of the unknown was too much to resist. By 7:45, I was bundled in a sweater and scarf, a nervous knot twisting in my stomach. The park after dark was usually deserted, a place for late-night joggers and the occasional dog walker. Perfect for a clandestine meeting, I rationalized, pushing aside the nagging guilt that wouldn't quite vanish. He was waiting by the oak tree, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. As I approached, a familiar smile lit up his face. Hey you. He pulled me into a tight hug, the warmth of his body sending a jolt through me. We walked, hand in hand, through the deserted park. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a stark contrast to the quiet darkness around us. He talked about his job, the stress, the long hours. I listened, offering words of encouragement, feeling a strange protectiveness towards this man shrouded in secrecy. Then, he stopped abruptly, pulling me close under the branches of a giant maple. The moonlight filtered through the leaves, casting a silvery glow on his face. He leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a question. My breath hitched. This was wrong, I knew it. But when his lips met mine, the world around us melted away. The kiss was electric, filled with a sense of forbidden excitement. We held onto each other like anchors in a storm, the stolen moments under the moonlight both exhilarating and terrifying. As he pulled away, his voice husky, he whispered, "This shouldn't feel so good, should it?" Guilt pricked my conscience, but before I could respond, his phone rang, a harsh sound in the quiet night. He swore under his breath, checking the screen. "Work," he muttered, his smile fading. "Gotta take this." He disappeared into a thicket of trees, leaving me alone under the watchful gaze of the moon. The magic of the moment shattered, replaced by a cold reality. This wasn't just a harmless flirtation. There were secrets David was keeping, and a sinking feeling told me I didn't want to know what they were. Dinner was perfect. Candlelight, fancy Italian food, the whole 9 yards. David was charming, attentive, everything I'd come to expect. But then, the phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his smile faltering for a brief moment. Wrong number, he muttered, quickly hitting silence. Except, I saw it. A woman's name flashed on the screen before he could hide it. A name I didn't recognize. My stomach lurched. It could be a colleague, a friend. But the unease wouldn't let go. Everything okay? I asked, forcing a smile. Yeah, just work stuff. He brushed it off, but his usual carefree air was gone. The rest of the dinner was strained, the conversation stilted. The flickering suspicion in my gut had turned into a full-blown fire alarm. A few days later, David texted, canceling our planned date night. Huge emergency at the station, he wrote, called in for another double shift. Disappointment washed over me, but there was something off about his message. Later that evening, flipping through channels, a local news report caught my eye. Officer David Miller commended for bravery in foiling a robbery attempt, it blared. The news anchor went on to detail the heroic actions of a single officer who apprehended a group of armed suspects. Relief battled with a fresh wave of suspicion. The timing was too perfect. If he was really the hero they made him out to be, wouldn't he have mentioned it before canceling our date? My phone buzzed. A text from David, all apologies and promises to make it up to me. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. The flowers that arrived at work the next day, a beautiful bouquet signed, Your Secret Admirer, only fueled my growing paranoia. The thrill of the secret affair was fading, replaced by a gnawing fear that something wasn't right. David, the charming cop, was suddenly a stranger shrouded in secrets, and I didn't like the feeling one bit. We were nestled by the fireplace, reliving our weekend getaway to the cabin. As he recounted the near miss with the bear on the hiking trail, a story I'd heard twice already, a detail struck me. Wait, I interjected, didn't you say the ranger warned us about a mountain lion, not a bear? He blinked, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Yeah, maybe you're right, he stammered, a touch too quickly. These weekend trips all blur together, you know? I narrowed my eyes. It was a small inconsistency, easily dismissed, but it felt like another piece in a puzzle I couldn't quite grasp. Lately, there had been too many inconsistencies in his stories. A cancelled date due to a supposed work emergency that never appeared on the news, a change in plans that didn't quite line up with his schedule. The nagging suspicion in my gut was morphing into full-blown doubt. Deciding to be upfront, I asked, David, is everything okay? You seem stressed lately. He reached for my hand, his smile practiced but not reaching his eyes. Just long hours, you know how it is with the job. But I did know. My dad was a cop. Long hours were normal, the occasional missed date due to a bad case, understandable. But the vibe I was getting from David was different, a deeper unease that his charm couldn't mask anymore. There's something you're not telling me, aren't you? I pressed, my voice firm. He hesitated, then sighed, a defeated look crossing his face. Look, it's nothing major, just. The interruption came from the blaring TV. A news report flashed on the screen, a familiar face appearing next to a caption that read, Officer Mark Miller awarded for dedication to family. My breath caught in my throat. Mark? Not David? And the woman standing beside him, a woman with a warm smile and a familiar glint in her eyes. Wasn't that the same woman whose name flashed on his phone screen weeks ago? The world spun as the pieces clicked into place. The inconsistencies, the alibis, the secret calls, it all came flooding back. This wasn't just stress from work. David, or should I say Mark, was a married man, and I, the naive fool, had been caught in his web of lies. My hands trembled as I typed his name into the search bar. Mark Miller. A single mom instinct whispered, the name from the news report clinging to my memory. His profile picture popped up. The same charming smile, the same crinkled eyes that had captivated me. But there was more. A woman, his arm wrapped around her waist, a genuine smile playing on her lips. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, beaming at the camera. A family. My world tilted. Clicking through the pictures confirmed my worst fears. Vacation trips, birthday parties, holidays, a life I'd foolishly believed could be mine. Rage, hot and blinding, surged through me. The phone felt heavy in my hand, the urge to throw it across the room a constant battle. He wasn't David, the single officer with long hours. He was Mark, a husband, a father, a liar. With shaking fingers, I dialed his number. The familiar ring felt like a taunt. He picked up on the second ring, his voice laced with a cheerfulness that made me want to scream. "Hey there, beautiful," he began. "Don't you?" "Hey there, me." I cut him off, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside. "I know the truth, Mark." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence stretched on the line. Then, a rush of words, apologies tumbling over justifications. He pleaded for forgiveness, for understanding, for me to keep quiet. But all I heard was a self-serving monologue from a man who had no regard for the wreckage he'd left in his wake. "No," I said, the word a dam breaking. "This ends now. You lied to me, Mark. You cheated on your wife, on your family. How could you?" His pleas turned desperate, but I wouldn't be swayed. Tears streamed down my face, a mix of anger and betrayal. The image of the happy family on his social media played on repeat in my mind, a stark contrast to the mess he'd created. "It's over, Mark," I repeated, my voice firm. "Don't ever contact me again." I hung up before he could respond, the silence on the other end a hollow echo of the shattered trust. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering on the floor. Curling into a ball on the couch, I let the tears flow freely, a cleansing flood washing away the hurt and the lies. Mark Miller wouldn't define my future. I would pick up the pieces, move on, stronger and wiser. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, I deserved better. Days bled into weeks. My once vibrant apartment felt like a tomb. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the nagging hum of the refrigerator and the hollow echo of my own footsteps. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders of him. A half-finished mug of coffee with 2 spoons, a habit we'd picked up. A book left open on the couch at the exact page we'd been discussing the night before the world came crashing down. The emptiness mirrored the hollowness inside me. Anger had been a shield, a burning rage that kept the reality at bay. But as the days passed, the anger began to fade, replaced by a cold, gnawing fear. Fear of the future, fear of being alone, fear of what if? The what if hit me one Tuesday morning, a wave of nausea that sent me scrambling to the bathroom. The taste in my mouth was familiar, a metallic tang that triggered a memory, a college roommate battling morning sickness. My stomach lurched. No, it couldn't be. But the cheap pregnancy test sitting in the medicine cabinet, the 2 bright pink lines glaring back at me, confirmed my worst fear. Panic clawed at my throat, constricting my airways. I was pregnant. With his child. Tears streamed down my face, a mix of fear and a strange, unexpected protectiveness. This tiny flicker of life inside me, a consequence of his deceit, was now my sole responsibility. The anger, the betrayal, they paled in comparison to the fierce determination that bloomed in my chest. Mark might have shattered my trust, but he wouldn't break me. I would face this, one day, one hurdle at a time. For this tiny life growing within me, I would be strong. The phone rang, shattering the fragile peace I'd carved out for myself. It was him, his voice a desperate plea. "Sarah, please," he stammered, "we need to talk about this. There are options." The word hung heavy in the air, abortion. The audacity of it took my breath away. Not only had he lied and betrayed me, but now he wanted to control the consequences of his actions? Fury surged through me, hot and potent. "There are no options, Mark," I spat, my voice surprisingly steady. "This is my decision now, and you have no say in it." He sputtered, more pleas tumbling out, but I cut him off. "Don't call me again." Slamming the phone down, I took a deep breath, the lingering anger a strange source of strength. Mark may have thought he could manipulate me again, but he was wrong. This wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. My survival and the well-being of the tiny life growing within me. Wiping away a stray tear, I grabbed my phone and dialed a number I'd found online, a lawyer specializing in family law. The process ahead seemed daunting, a legal maze filled with uncertainty. But the fear was overshadowed by a fierce determination. I would fight for myself, for my baby. The lawyer's office was sterile and impersonal, but the woman behind the desk radiated a warmth that calmed my jitters. Explaining my situation, the raw pain and humiliation still fresh, felt liberating. She listened patiently, nodding in understanding as I laid bare Mark's web of lies. "You're doing the right thing, Sarah," she said finally, her voice firm. "We'll get you through this." Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit. There would be battles ahead, legal jargon to decipher, and moments of doubt. But for the first time since my world had shattered, a flicker of hope ignited within me. I may have been a single mother by circumstance, but I wouldn't be alone. I had a lawyer, a growing strength within myself, and a tiny miracle on the way. And that, I realized, was more than enough. Telling my family was the hardest part. The thought of their disappointment, their judgment, gnawed at me for days. But I knew I couldn't face this alone. So, one tearful evening, I spilled the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, my mom pulled me into a hug, her arms a fierce embrace. Dad's face was a mask of fury, his voice low and dangerous as he muttered threats under his breath. My siblings, a united front of love and anger, showered me with support and promises to help in any way they could. The outpouring of love washed away some of the fear, leaving a burning ember of anger in its place. Anger towards Mark, for his lies and betrayal, but also a fierce determination to protect myself and my baby. With newfound resolve, I tackled the next hurdle, gathering proof. Digging through drawers and old boxes, I unearthed hotel receipts, love notes scribbled on napkins, and months of call logs on my phone. Each piece of evidence, a tiny shard of truth, felt like a weapon against his web of lies. The day the lawsuit for child support was filed, a wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about taking back control, securing a future for my child that wasn't dependent on Mark's whims. The journey wouldn't be easy. There would be court dates, legalese to navigate, and the ever-present possibility of Mark trying to weasel his way out of his responsibilities. But for the first time since my world had come crashing down, I felt a flicker of hope. I had a support system, a growing strength within myself, and most importantly, the unwavering love for the tiny miracle growing inside me. And that, I knew, was the most powerful weapon of all. The paralegal called, her voice laced with satisfaction. We got him served. Apparently, it caused quite a stir at the station. A smirk played on my lips. The image of his smug facade crumbling in front of his colleagues brought a flicker of dark pleasure. It wasn't petty, not entirely. It was a small dose of justice, a public shattering of the lie he'd built. But the victory was short-lived. Rumors started swirling around town, whispers following me like a shadow. Facing judgment stung, but I held my head high. My family rallied around me, a fortress against the gossip. Their unwavering support was my anchor in the storm. Then came the media frenzy. A local news report picked up the story, painting me as the victim and him as the villain. The news footage showed him being placed on administrative leave. Public exposure felt like a weight lifting off my chest. The truth, messy and raw, was finally out there. The court date arrived, a knot of nerves twisting in my stomach. Across the courtroom sat Mark, a stranger in a familiar uniform. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice held steady as I recounted his lies, the betrayal, the web of deceit he'd spun. He took the stand next, a practiced charm masking the desperation in his eyes. He twisted the narrative, claiming I knew about his wife all along. The judge, a stern woman with a sharp gaze, saw through his charade. Frustration flickered in her eyes as she exposed the holes in his story, the inconsistencies that betrayed his guilt. The verdict was a small victory, but a symbolic one. Child support was awarded, a financial security for my child and a public acknowledgement of his responsibility. More importantly, the judge's ruling shattered his illusion of control. He couldn't rewrite history, couldn't erase the truth. Walking out of the courthouse, the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't facing it alone. I had my family, my friends, and most importantly, my soon-to-be-born child. The future stretched before me, uncertain but filled with hope. And that, I realized, was a victory far greater than any courtroom